Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? Alyssa's doing great. Is everybody else doing good? Happy birthday, Hannah. All right, loud and clear. Allergy and sinus issues hold people back. But with our reimagined approach to relief, we make sure everyone finds their breath of fresh air.
This week's core value shout out goes to the team member who is reliable. So this verse is Matthew 5:37. Your yes is your yes and your no is your no. I just want to shout out this team member for her integrity and her trustworthiness. I see her crossing off her to-do list all throughout the day. Jessica Davis, thank you for being you. I appreciate all you do with rooming and setting up for our surgeries well in advance. Your hard work does not go unnoticed. We love you.
Whoa. Yo, yo, yo. We back. How we doing? Thank you. Okay. So, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to our third installment of the Fireside Chats about our core values. Little preview there of the coming drinks and beverages in the cafe. Okay. So, a couple weeks ago, we started in our redefining of our core values a little bit, not changing the name or the words, but we're kind of just really making sure there's a lot of clarity in what these core values really stand for, what they mean. And then we really want to take the ones that are potentially a little bit more nebulous, a little less clear, and make them more clear. So we walked through a couple of things last week and the week before, but this week it's interesting every time I get up here and start talking about one, the core value shout out somehow is lining up with the core value that we're addressing that week. Don't know how that's working, but it's a little serendipitous. Today, we're kind of redefining what it means to be reliable. So just like Marley said in the video, it's based on Matthew 5:37, let your yes be a yes and your no be a no. But it can be a little tricky at times to understand what does it mean to be reliable, right? So what we're going to do today is walk through a really simple framework or idea that is very, very challenging. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Today we're going to walk through a really simple framework that is very, very challenging. And this is what I want to do. I just want to unpack two big words and understand why one we want to avoid and one we want to embrace. And the one we want to embrace is something called agreements. Hold up there, guys. Back it up 1 second. Thank you. We want to choose clarity over assumption. So let's start with typically why we focus on reliability, right? If you remember back to the overview of our core values, we have 4 core values that are very action-oriented, like attitude-based, and then we have one that's outcomes-based, and this is at reliability, right? The one that we actually would say that if you're going to do something, please do it. If you can't do something, please let us know. That's what we kind of want to redefine today, because a lot of times there's an underlying expectation on top of what we would define as somebody that is reliable. So let's talk about that a little bit. We talked about the verse that exemplifies this. We want to talk about why expectations don't work. Because expectations specifically are the things that we all bring into relationships with us, whether we choose to bring them or not. It doesn't matter the relationship. It could be a friendship, could be a marriage, could be romantic, could be a parental relationship, whatever, community, work. We all bring expectations into our relationships, and so it's impossible to avoid bringing expectations into all relationships, but we can do our best to be intentional with trying to prioritize agreements over expectations. So first, I really want to talk about why expectations don't work. Number one, they're unspoken. Everything that we expect out of a human-to-human relationship is based on, surprise, surprise, another human relationship. Okay? Or some type of viewed experience, whether it be in film or TV or social media. We get all this input of relationship and what we determine it should be, and then we apply that relationship in the form of relationship expectation. As an example, you could be driving to work and somebody may pull up next to you and cut you off in traffic without putting their blinker on and cause you to slow down. That could make you very angry and upset. And you may say to yourself, well, that jerk, why would they do that, right? I have the expectation that if somebody's driving with me in traffic, they're going to put their blinker on, give me at least 3 car lengths, give me some time to let them over. Maybe I get to wave them up a little bit, right? I have an expectation about how I drive. The same can be true when I go to a restaurant, right? I go to a restaurant, I check in with the hostess stand, I get seated, and I have expectations about the waiter or the waitress to come fill my glass with water. What's the time that should take? How much time should I have to wait between the time I order my food and the time the food arrives to my table? What type of service should I receive while I'm at the table? All that is based on my previous experience in those situations, right? I'm bringing those expectations. Not good, not bad, just that's how it is. And what can happen is that if the person that's on the other side of that doesn't understand what the expectation is, it can lead to resentment, right? Let's go back to my buddy that cut me off in traffic. I'm now starting to resent the person in front of me. I'm resenting the waitress or the waiter because I'm applying my expectation of Ruth Chris Steakhouse to this very kind Chick-fil-A employee, right? Like I'm putting my expectations on them, and now I'm having a little bit of resentment because they're not meeting them. And those expectations may be totally unbeknownst to them. They have no idea. We're operating in the framework of you should know. This should be obvious. And here's the truth. The moment something I expect you to do is unclear to you, and very clear to me, and I start to resent you, the next thing that happens is I start to erode what I perceive your reliability to be. This is the truth, probably the most important thing I'm going to say today. It doesn't matter the human relationship that you're in. If you set an expectation in reliability for another person, they are very likely to meet it. Here's what I mean. If you have a business partner, a coworker, and your reliability expectation for them is mediocre based on their inability to meet your expectations, they're probably going to be mediocre. If your expectations for them or on a reliability perspective is, man, they are reliable. They are so good. I think they're going to get things done. They typically rise to the occasion and meet your expectations. If you've harbored resentment because they haven't met your expectations, and their reliability toward you, you've had an erosion of that reliability, and I'm like, man, Dustin's not going to answer the phone half the time. Guy can't even stay at his desk for more than 2 minutes, right? If that is my interpretation or opinion of him, he's going to perceive that, and he's going to meet that, right? Anyone's perception in a relationship about how that other person perceives them typically relationally meets that standard, okay? If I think my waitress at the restaurant is terrible, my attitude, behavior, and actions toward that person are going to reflect how I feel about them, and they're going to meet that. They're probably going to subconsciously meet that expectation, right? And all that happens unintentionally, right? All because I brought into the relationship uncommunicated expectations. And here's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's impossible to avoid bringing in expectations to any kind of relationship, right? If you're in a romantic relationship, you have expectations with your partner. If you're in a professional relationship, you have expectations that are going to be as best to be communicated. What we're talking about today is doing our best to prioritize agreements over expectations. Not that there's no expectations. It's that we prioritize our agreements so that when I'm determining what's your reliability, what's your value of contribution, what's your yes is your yes and your no is a no, it's based on the agreements we've made before. It's based on my uncommunicated expectations. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's talk about that. Why do agreements work? Well, number one, they bring clarity and alignment. So if I'm in a relationship or I have a person that I'm in business with, a patient, a coworker, a staff member, a romantic partner, and I have this uncommunicated expectation about something, and I have the opportunity to say, hey, would it be okay with you if we agreed upon this? What I'm doing is I'm saying I'm prioritizing our relationship enough to where I'm giving you the opportunity to meet expectations I may have, and I'm giving myself the opportunity to meet your expectations of me, right? Automatically, that's going to reset the relationship, right? I'm getting to raise my hand and say, hey, I actually care about this. I'm prioritizing this, right? And it may not be all the things, but I can pick a few things that I'm going to be really intentional about. And that's within each of us, right? That's going to be different for Jess than it is for Morgan than it is for Jesse. Those are going to be different agreements based on what's a specific importance to them from an agreement's perspective, right? Next is we build trust through integrity. When I have the opportunity to meet an agreement, it will always supersede the opportunity to meet an expectation. And that's unavoidable. So, for example, let's say I've got this agreement as an employee to be at a meeting to do an action item, right? So I've left the meeting, and my action item has been assigned to me to do blank, right? Now that I have an agreement to complete an action item, all of the things that could come up throughout the week, they are important. They may be an expectation. Let's say I work at the front desk, and my action item that week is to make sure that I count the number of phone calls that came in from Dr. De La Rosa's office. That was my action item for the week, because we had an assumption that this was happening. Well, there are things that may come up throughout the week that are front desk related that I need to track, that I need to measure, that I need to contribute. But when I come to that meeting, and I'm able to communicate, hey, this was my action item, this was the agreement that I made, I'm going to lead with that. Now I'm setting the tone for everyone in the organization, everyone in that meeting to understand that I've prioritized the agreement that I've made, right? And now, subconsciously, everyone's like, man, Dustin is checked in. So when we look at Dustin and say, hey, but we've also noticed some changes within the schedule from, Dr. So-and-so's office. Have you looked into that? Well, I haven't looked into that yet. If I don't have the opportunity to fulfill the agreement through the action item, now now I'm only being judged by expectations. Do you see it? If I'm using agreements over expectations, then I am not going to be a victim to the eroding reliability of expectation management alone. Because I don't know when I come into a meeting what Marley's expectations are going to be or what Jesse's expectations are going to be. Those change meeting to meeting based on our current predisposition. And that's not just for those two, that's for all of us. Our expectations are fluid. Some are, some aren't. Agreements, though, if we prioritize those, then we have the opportunity to meet a standard that communicates, I'm present, I'm reliable, I'm available. Does that make sense? And then finally, they empower accountability. Everyone, if the agreement is appropriate, if it's a win-win, if I'm agreeing to do something, loves to be held accountable for something that they can do well, right? If I'm going to come to a meeting, or I'm going to come to an event, or I'm part of a relationship, and the person that's on the other side of that relationship is about to put a value judgment on my reliability based on something I'm bringing to the relationship, I want to be held accountable for something that I agree to. I want to be held accountable for something that I know that it's a good thing for me or that it's positive for me. That's something I can contribute, right? So if I'm held accountable for things that I'm agreeing to, things that I'm saying yes to, things that I'm actually knowing that I'm going to be held accountable for, then that's a positive thing, okay? So guess what? That's the whole idea. Simple idea, very difficult to implement, right? It's agreements over expectations. So here's a couple practical tools for you, okay? Number one, if you find yourself thinking, gosh, so-and-so is not that reliable, or so-and-so never gets that work done, or I don't know if I can depend on them, ask yourself a question. When's the last time they had the opportunity to fulfill an agreement, right? An action item, being at work on time, something that's been clearly communicated. And am I evaluating them or this relationship based on that? The next thing I would do is I would ask yourself, what are the expectations and agreements I'm being held accountable to? And how can I get control of those? So that I know that how I'm being evaluated in all relationships are appropriate. And then finally, little practical step here, coming soon. Gosh, I'm looking at Morgan, hopefully she confirms or denies this. Within the next couple weeks or so, one of our priorities for the quarter, and even last quarter, transitioning into this quarter, is rebuilding HR. There's an update to the handbook coming. So as that gets released, diving into that, reading it, making sure it makes sense so that you understand the specific agreements that are within that so that you're on board with that too, right? This is the simple message right here, right? Make sure that what's determining the outcomes of your relationships are things you're on board with. And if you're finding yourself in tumultuousness within a relationship, and that could be professionally or personally, it doesn't matter. Ask yourself the question: is it because of an expectation that's uncommunicated, or an expectation that's not being met? And has it been communicated clearly? So that's it. It's agreements over expectations. Expectations are impossible to avoid altogether. Can't get rid of them, but we're just prioritizing agreements over expectations. Sound reasonable? Cool. All right, here's what's coming up. Friendsgiving is happening on the 19th, 12 p.m. Holla praise. Holla praise. There should be some games, too, I feel like. Just saying. Excellent. Forward's still happening on Mondays, and then the Christmas party on December 11th. Sound awesome? All right, let's rock and roll.